Good morning, everybody. Hi, Deb. You're the only one on here so far. And Paula, I will have lots of people on here. I know we will. Not quite as sunny today, a little bit more breezy. So that's nice freshness. It would be nice if we could have some rain, but we're not due for rain until next week. There's all these coy people still after 2 weeks who are not connected to video. Rob is connected to video now. Thank you, Rob. Good morning. So that's good. I put on makeup and everything. You need to be showing me what you look. No webcam. Okay. Well, you could put a pretty picture up there. That would be fine. Just put a pretty picture up, I don't know, of whatever supermodel you would like to be. And we'll just say, oh, doesn't Deb look amazing this morning? Hi, Tori. How are you doing? Good. Oh, yes. I need to put a question about the portal. Okay, that's good. Everybody getting it on. That's good. I'm sure we will have lots of questions from everybody. We'll give them a couple more seconds to get on and then we'll start. It's good. Hi, Chelsea. Nice to see you again. That's fine. Hi, Kathy. I've spoken to Kathy this morning, but I haven't seen her. Hi. That's good. Right. So what have we got in the chat? So what we're going to do as usual is that we're going to go through and answer some of the questions that have come up this week in other Zoom calls, which will obviously provoke more questions from you guys. And then if you put your questions in the chat and then we can deal with them, we'll just start going. I thought if I asked Tori one first, it's not a difficult one, but it's about your experience. We've had people, well, probably like you, people who've put into the portal a claim for somebody who wasn't actually on the payroll in February, and they put in a claim for them and it came through and they don't understand why it came through. And it's like, that's great news, but I wondered what your experience has been with claims for portal and people being on or off payroll.
Okay, so I haven't had that experience. In fact, we've had it the other way around where we've got people who are on a payroll, but we can't get them through for a claim. And that's happening where we've got annual or quarterly payrolls seem to have caused some problems. The guidance does say that you can, specifically says you can claim for annual payrolls for directors, but the mechanism doesn't always seem to work in the portal. So Caroline, where you've had that, is that so they know that the member of staff has already left, but they've still managed to claim for them?
No, this was a 0 hours person who'd worked at Christmas and then did some work actually in April. I don't know why they did that, but they put them through the end of the April furlough when the portal was live, and it said, yes, although you didn't do a submission for them in February, it accepted that they were owed money for furlough. So it was very strange.
My guess is that where you've had other people on the payroll, so an RTI has been put in for the month of February, that person that's not paid is still considered to be on the payroll, just with a 0 amount. So the RTI pushes them through. The problem that we've found is where you have a payroll where there's nobody being paid in that month, then an RTI doesn't go in and an EPF goes in. It's a different sort of submission.
Yeah.
And that submission doesn't seem to be allowing the trigger to be done so that people can make the claim. So my understanding is that that is how the portal is designed to work, is that if you've got somebody that's 0 hours, they're still considered to be on the payroll, they just didn't have a payment in February, then you can make that claim for them through the furlough scheme.
Oh, okay. That's a lot easier then. Yeah, because it has been, though, 6 or half a dozen the others. Some of them have done it no problem at all, and others it's just said, no, go away. So,
and it's possible that those ones where it hasn't worked is because there's everybody's on a 0 hours, so there's no RTI to match.
Yeah, that might be it. Yes, exactly. But what we've been saying is that, look, try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But yeah, I mean, we're sort of past the trying it stage. Should have tried it a long time ago, last month, really. But
yeah, where we've still got some of those that are sticking, that are like that, we've put in requests to talk to a technical officer at HMRC. Some of them are better than others, so it kind of depends. It's a bit of a lottery on who you get. I have had some accountants being able to get some of that pushed through by a technical officer, and other people haven't. So if you're waiting and you've got it caught and it's not going through, it is worth asking for a technical officer to review it for you.
Okay, no, that's really good. And then another portal question that's come to me. Our understanding is that when you're paying people, variable hours people, you should be doing the hire of either what they earned this month last year, or the average of the 52 weeks, 2019-20 tax year. That's it. Yeah. And there isn't anything. Those are the two options, aren't they? There isn't anything else.
Yeah, those are your options. So you can either look at this at the same period in the previous year, or you can look at the average. And yeah, it seemed from the guidance that you could choose the one that is more beneficial.
Okay, because I had understood that it said higher. You should choose a higher. Is it not that definite? Is it that it's more you could choose a lower one? Because we've been saying it's the higher. I don't know how.
Because I always work from the employer's point of view, I always assume that they're going to want to choose the higher one because that's the better for everybody. I can't imagine a situation where you'd say, but I'm going to pay you less because you're going to get it all back. I can see where this could become an issue once we get into maybe August, and then the employer's having to cover some of this cost. I think then we may find that people are a bit more interested in how that calculation is being made.
Yes, there were a couple of questions yesterday from the golf clubs. Again, not about the practicalities, about the finances, but it just seemed unfair that using somebody's 0 hours pay from last year they were doing lots of hours and they got £900 more than they would have got if they had been working on the scheduled hours this year in May. And we're like, okay, but that's what it is. And the point is that 0 hours take the risk that they might not get any work. Last year they got work, this year they haven't got work, okay? But actually an employee who's always working 16 hours will always get paid for the 16 hours. So it swings and roundabouts. You have the risk, but you could earn more, or you have very little risk, but you earn less. It's the same. Absolutely.
And those 0 hours contracts, guys, they take those hits. You know, they do it on holiday as well. So yeah, I think in the circumstances at the moment, we'll always be choosing the higher. I think that is a conversation that's going to come up in the next few weeks about what's going to happen once we change the way furlough is funded.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Thank you very much, Tori. So that leads neatly into furlough light that we will be having from the 1st of August. We still don't have the details. I was the eternal optimist. I thought when they said last week, oh yeah, we'll have this with you by the end of May, I just somehow, I don't know why I thought this, that of course I'll have it in the next few days. Why would they suggest it without having an idea of what they're going to do? They obviously have got no idea what they're going to do. They've started running situations, as we've been talking about it in our other networking groups as well, and going, well, how about this? Well, that won't work because of this. And what about that? And can they come back and have? And so they've obviously gone, oh, this is a little more difficult than we thought it was going to be. Also, they absolutely love doing major announcements at 9 o'clock on a Friday evening. So what we think they're going to do with this one is it's going to be an announcement at 9 o'clock on Friday evening. We've got the bank holiday. I know we're all days are the same now, but we have got a bank holiday. So they don't officially have to defend that until Tuesday. And that gives them breathing space to see what the issues are with it, what everybody's pointing out are the problems, and then they can come up with a solution by Tuesday. So we've got bets on in our team as to whether it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or even tomorrow afternoon, so that we've got time to process it, and then we can discuss that next week on this call, okay, what it actually means. So we don't know anything at the moment. So there's no point really at the moment talking about what's going to happen from the 1st of August because we don't know what we can and can't do, but it is almost definite that it's going to involve people going back to work part-time because the government cannot afford to keep paying furlough at 80%. It's not that you're going to, somebody to say, oh, does that mean we have to pay, say, half of it, 40%, and the people stay on furlough? It's like, no, the government knows that's not going to work. I can't see any business owners say, I'll pay you 40% and you don't do anything. But it's whether they're back at work 50% and they get paid 100% and you pay 50% and the government pays 50%. Whatever it is, it will involve people coming back to work. Okay, so we've got that new furlough light, that's fine, which then goes into getting people back from furlough. Okay, so we went through this last week, but just to reiterate, if they're not in the extremely vulnerable groups and they don't have childcare issues, then when you give them notice to come back from furlough, they should be coming back from furlough. So if you wanted them back on Monday, well, not this Monday, but Tuesday, you should be giving them notice either yesterday afternoon or today in writing, just saying, hi, actually, we need you back from furlough, 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, please back in the office. And to preempt any issues is to have your risk assessments and your social distancing policy set out, send that with it and say, here are these guidelines, please reply and say that you understand and that you're going to follow these, and certainly on the first day get them to sign it when they come into the office or the workplace, and then make sure that you're adhering to it. You will have probably two camps, people who would like a hazmat suit and people who really don't care. And there's going to be a clash between those two, and you'll probably have a mixture in your workplace. So you need to make clear to the ones who don't care that if they don't follow those guidelines, it is a health and safety matter and it is potential gross misconduct. We're not aiming to fire people for this, but if they deliberately go up to the people who'd rather have a hazmat suit and start coughing because it's sunny, then we're going to be doing gross misconduct disciplinaries, okay? And if you do have any situations like that, then let me know. Do not fire them on the spot, because that will still be an unfair dismissal claim, okay? If they're over 2 years, it's an unfair dismissal claim. If it's under 2 years, you will still have to pay the notice period, even if you fire them for gross misconduct, if you do not follow a disciplinary process, okay? So you have to follow a disciplinary process no matter how long they've been with you to avoid paying any notice period. So yes, it would be gross misconduct if they deliberately cough over somebody, even if they're not ill, because they think it's funny, but we need to do it the right way to protect you from any claims going forward, okay? And by doing that, you're also protecting yourself against any claim from the person who's been coughed over by saying that it's a personal injury claim. And the lawyers are already out there. Julie was saying, I don't think she was on the call. Julie had a bit of a time on the Sunday, and she decided she'd do some Googling about the ambulance chasers and saying, I want to sue my employer for this. And their letters are already out there to actually go and start a personal injury claim. Okay, they are ramping up about this. There's lawyers out there from my business networking group who are actually ramping up to prosecute the banks for the lack of for not approving bounce back loans and C-bills, because there's been so much. It seemed to be it was going to be so easy, and then the banks have been not very cooperative with that. So there's people who are going to sue the banks for this. An employer is a much easier target than a bank. So I'm just saying you need to be protecting yourself. There are ways to do that. It does not mean you have to leave everybody off on furlough, but you do need to make sure you got all your health and safety procedures sorted out and documented, and make sure everybody adheres to them. Okay. If they're not in the vulnerable groups, they've not got childcare issues, which most people will because there's no childcare, and then they should be coming back if that's a situation. If they are in the extremely vulnerable group, they should stay on furlough for as long as possible. At the moment, till the end of July. Don't make any statements to anybody, any employees, saying, we're going to keep you on furlough till it ends. Because at the moment, the official term furlough is until the end of October. But you don't know what it's going to be from the 1st of August. So don't make any empty promises, because we may well have to, once we know what the details are, go, actually, no, we need them back at work, or we're going to have to come to some other arrangement, okay? That they may be on unpaid leave or on SSP, whatever it is, we don't know. But we need, so don't make, we did have somebody say, oh, but I've told them they're off until October. Well, you wouldn't do that in a normal time, would you? As a business owner, you say, I will definitely not fire you before the end of October. Nobody would ever say that, because you don't know what the employee's going to do, let alone anything else. So just say, if you have said that, what we should be doing is sending out a confirmation letter just to confirm our conversation or our previous emails that we will be keeping you on furlough until the end of July at 80% or 100%, whatever you're paying, and then we'll be reviewing the situation in July when we have more information. Okay, and then we can make a decision what we're going to do. If they are shielding, they don't have an automatic right to be on furlough. You will absolutely need the strictest social distancing guidelines applied. It might be easier that they stay at home. It might be easier that they work from home. it depends on your situation, but you need to make sure again, and we don't know how high the risk is, to say we want to avoid that it's not only a personal injury claim if they get the coronavirus and they think they got it from you and that then infected their partner, the person they're shielding, but also a potential discrimination claim for disability discrimination, that you didn't make reasonable adjustments to allow for the fact that there's this pandemic and they could have easily worked from home and you insisted they came in and then the person they're shielding got coronavirus. We don't know how high that risk is. From ambulance chasers, normally I think the risk is fairly high. There will be a lot of cases. You don't want to be a test case. So try and think about it from a business perspective rather than a personal principle perspective. Not, I feel everybody should be back and they shouldn't be messing around. Okay, but you've got to think about the business. How is this going to expose the business, and make that decision rather than a point of principle. Okay. Giving notice. Giving notice during furlough. If you've got people who are coming up to their 2 years service, you need to be seriously thinking about parting. No, sorry, that sounded awful. You don't have to think about parting company, but if you were thinking of parting company with them at some point, you need to do it before the 2 years is up. Once they're over 2 years and the notice period is included in getting them over that 2 years, then you have to follow a full process to part company, a full redundancy process. Okay. If you get rid of them under 2 years, you just have to say, I'm sorry, I'm making you redundant. Here's your notice period. That's it. There is no other consultation. There's no statutory redundant pay. It's really easy to do, and they have no claim against you. So the thing is that we had a phone call yesterday, and it's like, okay, well, I've got people whose 2 years are up on the 7th of June, and they're on a month's notice. Okay, so we can't put them on garden leave for that. So if you could put them on garden leave, you would be paying them at 100%, but you get 80% back from the government. Because it's the 7th of June and we can't do that with a month, because that would take us over the 2 years, we're going to have to do a payment in lieu of notice, a pile-on payment, which takes them off the books immediately. They get their P45. The problem is a pile-on payment that month, you still have to pay 100%, but you cannot claim it back on furlough. That's the thing. You just have to, well, suck it and see. But you have to do that. So you need to be thinking about that, because you don't want to get to 2 years and 1 day, and we have had that before, 2 years and 1 day, and then say, oh, actually, I need to get rid of them. Well, now you're going to have to pay a lot more money. So, but what we're also saying is, if you're going to do restructuring, to try and do most of it during furlough. If you are going to restructure, it would be better to do it sooner rather than later, because you can always offer jobs to the people you've made redundant to bring them back on board. If you then decide after a couple of months, actually, we do want to reopen, you go back to them and say, would you like this job? Not their old job back, but whatever job you need at that point with whatever salary you're offering at that point. Okay, so we have it in the golf clubs that the food and beverage is that it's not going to open before the 1st of July. It doesn't make a lot of profit generally anyway. It's an advantage for the members, but it's not profit making. Actually, a lot of them are saying we're going to terminate that, but they were unsure whether they could then reopen in, say, October or even for December, because Christmas is very busy in the golf clubs with events. And there is a claim, the employees have 6 months, well, 4 months, but there's a delay in processing. So you have to work on 6 months to make a claim against you for unfair dismissal if you make them redundant and then open the food and beverage department again. But you can avoid that claim by, when you do want to reopen it, say to them, actually, we are reopening, here are all the possible roles, would you like to apply for them? You interview them as you would an external person, and they would meet the criteria or they wouldn't. If they do, they are then restarting at 0. They do not have continuity of service. The P45 has been issued, there's been a break. So if they are a challenging person, and this is the concern, that you have now the chance, the clubs have a chance to get rid of people who've not been managed for years and have been, taking advantage, taking part of the company. They don't want to have to take them back on again. But if they do take them back on, it would be at day 1, and then they've got 2 years to part company. So it's not that they've got the continuity. So as the 20 years they had before, they can just say, actually, it's not working out, here's your week's notice, off you go. And that would be it. And there'll be no comeback. to it. So there, I know it sounds that it's quite restricted, but you can make people redundant, but you can reopen again as long as you offer them the role. So there are ways around everything to keep you safe from a claim. Okay. I thought I'll go to chat. I think there was so much in the chat. Libby, I know we have a month to go, but is there any indication that people who are already shielded will get an extension to the initial 12 weeks? And there is. So my understanding is that a letter was sent out at the beginning of May to people on the list saying you are required, so the 1.5 million they're on the NHS list, to say you are required, or we strongly recommend that you stay at home for another 12 weeks from the 1st of May. Okay, so that's the ones that they need to be doing. They are not going to have a different furlough rules. That is not my understanding. I don't know, Tori, what you don't know. It's just it's just you can't fire them for being at home. That's the thing. That would be an automatic disability discrimination case. But that they can stay at home, they'd be on furlough, they'd be on whatever scheme that comes in after the 1st of August. But yes, absolutely, another 12 weeks, and possibly even another 12 weeks after that. We don't know, but we'll see how it goes with that one. Okay, we've done the restructuring holiday whilst on furlough. Our recommendation is that you try and get your staff to take as much of their accrued holiday whilst they're on furlough as you can, because that makes it then easier should they come back, or when they come back, that they don't expect to be going on holiday. So you might, when everybody comes back, a lot of businesses like, now we're ramping up, we can't afford to have people taking holiday, and you are allowed to refuse holiday. That doesn't mean, of course, that they won't take it, and then you've got to discipline them, and it's all a faff and everything. So it's much easier if you tell them or ask them, okay, first stage, be nice, ask them. It's along the lines of, go to them and say, you've accrued this number of holidays this year so far. Would you like to take any of them whilst you're on furlough? You will, of course, be paid at 100% for those days, question mark. See if they say yes or no, don't know. If they don't take you up on that, but you would like them to take it, you can, as the employer, put them on holiday. So if they have 5 days holiday owing, you have to give them 10 calendar days notice of those 5 days in writing, saying, actually, from this date, you will be on holiday for 5 days and you'll be paid at 100%. And they can't object to that. That is perfectly fine. The only caveat to that is if they are in that extremely vulnerable group, okay, and possibly the childcare, although that's that's less of an issue. But those who are in the extremely vulnerable group, you cannot be put on holiday, because the government's definition of holiday now, and they didn't used to define it like this, but the definition of holiday is that they can genuinely enjoy it. Which, okay, what does that mean? There are holidays I've had before this that I didn't genuinely enjoy, but okay. But if they are in that extremely vulnerable group, they are not going out there like the rest of us. They don't have the unlimited exercise. They don't, as long as they're doing social distancing, they don't go out, because it is actually a lot more dangerous for them. So the people in that group, you cannot put on holiday. They have to carry it forward. Everybody else, you can make them take what they've had so far, accrued so far this year. And if they have in the contract, as I said before, 20 days plus 8 days bank holiday, then they are deemed to have taken the 4 days bank holiday in April and May. Okay, they need to have been paid at 100% for those. You get 80% back from the government, but they're taken. So if they are on bank holidays, they will, by the end of May, have taken 5 of their 8 bank holidays. Okay, and then the rest of it is, whether it's a calendar year, it will be around, I think it's about 9 days they'll have taken by the end of May. How much have they taken? Right, you can put them on that. So if you wanted them to take 10 days holiday, you'd have to give them 20 calendar days notice. Okay, and again, they can't object to that, but to make it from a business perspective nice and cheap, you need to be doing that to make sure they take it before the end of July, so you're only paying that 20% top up. Cheapest holiday you'll ever have. And then you don't need to worry about getting people into cover, et cetera, et cetera. However, if they can't take it, or don't, and they're extremely vulnerable, they can carry over their holiday for the next 2 leave years. Okay, so you don't pay it out if they can't take it now or can't take it this year. You let them carry it over and take some next year, some the year after. Okay, so from a business perspective, it's much better to get them to take the accrued stuff now. Okay, so that there's nothing to carry forward. It's just what they will have accrued when they're back at work. Okay, Any questions? Oh, Sonia. Okay. If we extend furlough and notify staff, but halfway through the month we need them back as government advice changes, can we bring back earlier than the proposed end date in the letter? Yes. So what we have in our letter, and you need to be careful about what you've put in your letter, is there are some letters we've seen, not from us, that said we will give you 30 days notice of a change. And it's like, okay, that 30 days now, we don't have that certainty. 30 days is far too long. Even 7 days is too long. We've put in, we'll give you reasonable notice of a change. So if you've said an actual timeline in it, you will have to adhere to that timeline. Again, don't know how high the risk is. It's just going to avoid at least a few, nasty emails from people saying I can't possibly come back. But you can bring them back. The only caveat is, again, the furlough has to be a minimum of 3 weeks at a time. So 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks is fine, but not less than 3 weeks. So if you need to have people coming back, you need to just make sure you're complying with the furlough rules. Okay? That's the only thing. And the proposed end date, you have the right to bring them back to work. They are supposed to be working, but you just need to adhere to whatever you've put in that letter. If you've used our letter, then reasonable, 48 hours notice should be fine. And you need to do that as soon as possible so that people then have the chance to say, yeah, that's great, or you can sort of talk to them about the health and safety aspects and everything like that and find out if they are shielding. If they say they're shielding, you will need to get more information out of them. You will need to see a letter. Unfortunately, now we've got the situation, and it does feel not very nice, but we need to know exactly what they're shielding for. And it has turned out that actually they haven't got anything, not them, but the person they say they're shielding, they say, well, I think that they are at risk, but they don't have a letter. They're not in the categories. They don't have any of the things that are listed in categories, but I still think they're at risk. It's like, well, the problem is you're not a medical professional. If the medical professional's not saying that, and you haven't got anything from your GP saying that they're vulnerable, then unfortunately they're not. We absolutely are following the social distancing guidelines, but we do need you back. If you don't want to come back, it's then unpaid leave. It's not whether it's furlough or working, it's whether it's working or unpaid leave. Okay? So that's the thing. And we also had the question yesterday whether you can put staff on holiday retrospectively. You can't do it retrospectively, you can only do it in advance. Okay, so you absolutely can get them to take the holiday, but you have to tell them in advance, not, oh, you were on holiday. And the other thing was the furlough payment. We had the question about, can we reduce the furlough payment from 100%, which we've been paying, and we can't afford that anymore, down to 80%? You absolutely can, but you need to give them the notice, a 1 pay period notice, as Nadia said yesterday on our call. So if you tell them now that for June they'll actually be on 80%, that's absolutely fine. You don't tell them now that, oh, by the way, in May you were on 80%. That you can't do that, but you can tell them now for June that you'll be on 80%. Okay. Tori, have there been any interesting questions on it from your side?
I think one of the questions that I've been fielding this week has been around the holiday side. I think especially with the bank holidays in May, 2 bank holidays throws up all sorts of questions. So there's been a lot of information going backwards and forwards about, well, how do we work out how much to pay, and reminding people that bank holidays, if they're contracted that way, need to be paid at 100%. And I've heard quite a few accountants saying we're just not doing that, which is interesting. It's complicated, and if you're dealing with a lot of furlough, that's it's quite a burden. And some people saying that they've talked to their staff and just pushed the bank holidays to a later date. So they said you can take your bank holiday at a later date. So there's some of that going on. I know it's not what it says in their contracts. So you may hear some of these kind of conversations going on. But yeah, the bit around the bank holiday is technically tricky, but should be adhered to. I think that's really the thing that's come out this week for us.
Yeah, and there's no advantage to the business to push the bank holidays out. I mean,
I think it's just I can't be bothered to do the maths.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Okay, that's fine. Yes. Okay, and the other question that was asked this morning was about if somebody has children and is currently on furlough and you want them to come back, how much can you insist on that? At the moment, you can't really, because there is no childcare. I know from the 1st of June, the childcare nurseries, so preschoolers, are set up to open with social distancing. I'm not aware of any restrictions on the numbers of people they're taking. They're probably full anyway, so I'm not saying that you can go and sign up to them, but I'm saying if your staff have preschool children, there's a good chance that they will have nursery cover for that. However, it's the school-age children that are a problem. That is going round and round in circles. I won't go on about that now, because that is a trigger point for me at the moment. But I will have that with my glass of red wine later. We'll do that conversation. But so if they've got school-age children, there is no childcare or any extremely limited childcare. You have to take that into account. You cannot just say, you know, effectively, I don't care. You've got a job, get your backside back in, because they don't have the childcare, and it's not through any fault of their own. And if you do start insisting, or if you, heaven forbid, dismiss them for that, you have got a discrimination claim. It's an indirect sex discrimination claim, because I'm going to bet it's mainly the women. The women are, you know, 95% of the women are the primary carers, and it's going to be the women who get fired, not the men who get fired, because the men will not use that as an excuse. They will go, and the women will be left to carry the baby effectively. And if you do that, that is a discrimination claim, and discrimination claims are unlimited in their awards, and something like that, you are talking at least a year's pay for the person, plus your legal fees, plus damages to feelings, which is why the bankers always, for their sex discrimination claims, always got 2.5 million, 3.5 million. It's not that just the amount of money they would have earned, it's a damage to feelings. That is the grey area that can be, you know, tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds. So for the sake of leaving people on furlough until the schools, which we have no control over, they are a law unto themselves, get themselves sorted out, we aren't going to be able to insist that people with childcare issues come back. Okay, we're looking at realistically beginning of September for everybody to be back at the moment. But it's a fluid situation, as we know. We'll have to see how it goes. But you can't insist they come back, and please do not fire them if they refuse to, because they've got childcare issues. It's just going to end badly for you. Okay, good. Right, if there's no other questions, we'll leave it for today. We'll have a short session today. Hopefully we'll have more details next week when we come on this call for the furlough scheme. That would be great. And as always, we're here if you've got any questions about furlough, or getting people back from furlough, or people refusing to do that, point blank, what we can do next. Otherwise, I was going to say, go and enjoy the sunshine, but there's no sunshine today. It's got all grey. But it's supposed to be nice over the weekend. Who'd have thought, England, bank holidays, that we have such lovely weather? I mean, it's just unheard of. It's usually pouring with rain on all of these. So that's great. It's been lovely talking to you, everybody. And let us know if there are any problems we can help. Otherwise, we'll be back here next Friday. Lovely. Take care, everybody. Bye.